Dr. Mahabodi's agreed to do one of the lesser areas, our favorite areas. So we do poorly on this, as I said in the email. It's a little bit of feedback, Nairman, but we'll see. Um, but feel free to post any questions in the chat, raise your hand, or just pop out. I think there's a small enough group that you can just, if you see something, don't hesitate to slow them down. And at this time, I'll turn it over to you. So,
Good, thank you very much. I'm trying to see the chat panel in my PC.
uh,
It's not here, but anyway, I think if somebody
I'll,
just posts something,
they can just, yeah, speak up and ask you the
okay,
question too.
that should be fine. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dr. Miller. Uh, so, hi everyone. Um, I have basically taught this mathematics and statistics before for FE review. What I just learned is that probability is not in the FE exam of civil anymore, or maybe you will receive just one question, which is again inside in the section of statistics, not in the probability. So you may receive about 12 questions in total, and I reviewed a few like the transcripts on Reddit for civil engineering students, and I found you may receive about 7 to 8 questions from mathematics, and probably about 3 to 4 questions from statistics. So as Dr. Miller mentioned, historically our students they perform lower than, I mean, in math and statistics lower than other sections. So hopefully I can teach you something today. Uh, in my opinion, mathematics and statistics are the simplest sections of your FE exam, because you already know which sections you may receive the questions, and it's pretty straightforward. Even I would say 50-60% of the questions you may not need to know like the background of that questions. You just need to plug in into the choices. So let's work on these mathematics and statistics sections. I have provided about 20 or 21 questions. So for some sections, we may have 2 or 3 examples, and we're going to start from the equations of straight line to polar coordinate limit integral vectors, and then we will end up with the statistics. So I think in your FE exam, you might have an average of 3 minute question, like 3 minutes for each questions. And to be honest, I think for math and statistics, for most of the questions, you may need even less than 1 minute. So I think for if you really practice these 2 sections, you might be even be able to save some time for uh, other like disciplines for like fluid mechanics or geotech or structure or other sections. So let's see what we have. Let's work on the first example. So this is the question. As I mentioned, we're going to start with like the equation of a straight line. And this is pretty straightforward. So the question here is, what is the length of a line segment with a slope of 4/3 measured from the y-axis to a point 6 and 4? So what I do usually for these kind of questions, like linear equations, I'm going to immediately draw the coordinate and just to get some insight about what we have in this question. So here we have a slope of 4/3, and then this measure should be measured from the y-axis to a point of 6 and 4. So 6 and 4 is basically here, right? And then there's a slope of 4/3. It means y, if y is 3, x should be, sorry, if y is 4, x should be 3, right? So if this is 4, then 3, well, this is probably the slope. And you don't need to have this like the graph, but this is usually what I do to get some insight. And even from this graph, you can get the answer, right? So the question is, what is this line segment, right? From the point 6 and 4 with its intersection to the y-axis, right? So we need to find this point. Just by looking into the graph, it seems that if this is 4, this is 6, well, this line segment would not be more than 10 or 12. So I would say this is the correct answer. But then let's just get into the equations, right? So what is the equation of a straight line? If my slope is m, which is given 4/3, then we can form the equation of a linear of this straight line, right? We need only one point, which is given. So y minus y1 equal to m, x minus x1, right? And then x1 and y1 is given. This is equal to 6 and 4. So let's just form this minus, sorry, this should be other way around. No, this is correct. Okay, 6 and 4. So 4, this is equal to 4/3 x minus 6, right? And then this is going to be 4/3 x minus 8, or just simplify this, y should be equal to 4/3 times x minus 4. So what is the intercept for the y-axis is this point, right? So y should be equal to 0. If we equalize y equal to 0, then x is going to be equal to minus 4, right? So this point is basically minus 4 and 0. So we have 2 points, 6 and 4, and minus 4 and 0, right? 2 points, let's just measure the distance. And distance is easy, right? It's just x, or let's say the delta x, or the difference of the x of these 2 points to the power of 2, and then the difference in y to the power of 2. So this is going to be 0 minus 6 to the 2 plus minus 4 minus 4 to the 2, right? So in this case, we have, let's say, 8 difference. Sorry, this is the x difference, which is 6 difference. And then these 2 points have about 8 difference, right? And this is going to be 10. So pretty straightforward. You should be just fast if you're going to use the equations. Otherwise, I will immediately look into the choices, right? And then if the difference of the choices are really high, like these example that we have, then I would even use a graphical, representative to find the answer. Any question for the first example? Okay. So once we go over other examples, I will also go over like the manual shortly.
Airman,
Yeah.
they think they were chicken here or something here. Isn't the coordinate 0 minus 4 instead of minus 4, 0? So you still get the same number.
Correct. Thank you very much. This should be
No
0.
worries. Just for the notes' sake.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you got the y equals 0. You'd be x equals 0. Or, that other little
Exactly.
part.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
You're fine. And I'll go back to working here. I just enjoying the iPad show. So
Yeah, I mean, I have 3 minutes for each question, so I shouldn't be too fast. Thank you. Any question? Okay, let's go to the second question. Okay, what is the general form of the equation for a line whose x-intercept is 4 and then the y-intercept is minus 6? So again, we have 2 points, right? The first point is basically 4 and 0. This is the x-intercept. And then the second point is 0 and minus 6. Again, this should be the case, right? The first point, maybe this is minus 6, and this is the second point. Okay, what is, again, the slope? M is delta y divided by delta x. So this means minus x minus 0 divided by 0 minus 4, right? So the second point minus the first point in terms of x and y. And this is going to be in a slope of 3 over 2. And you have these 4 choices. Again, we do not even need to go over all these equations. Just by looking into the equation and try these 2 points, you should be able to find a solution. But here, the final form of the equation would be y equal to the slope minus 6, right? I just use this equation to find the general form of the line, right? So this is the final form, but then what you see in the choices, it's a little bit different. So let's try to form one of these choices, right? So I'm just gonna multiply y with 2. So 2y will be equal to 3x minus 12, or this is basically 3x minus 2y minus 12 is equal to 0, right? So the final answer is C. But then what I do even before going through the slope, just I can try these 2 points, right? So let's say my point is 4 and 0. So the answer should satisfy these points, right? So 4 and 0, if you plug 4 and 0 for the first equation, 4 times 2, 8, right? So 8, this is 0, 8 minus 18 cannot be 0. This cannot satisfy, right? Because this is positive, this is 0. Even this cannot be satisfied, the first point, right? This is positive, positive, and this is 0. So it's just C that satisfy my point. And even you don't need the second point. So this is problem 2. So first 2 questions about the equation of a straight line. Pretty straightforward. You just need the general form of a straight line, and you should know what is slope, and what is the distance of 2 points. This is the only thing that you need for the straight line equation. Okay, if no question, I'm gonna go to the third question, and if you need more time, just let me know. Yeah, otherwise, I will send all these slides and solutions to Dr. Miller so he can upload this later on Brightspace. Okay, so question 3, this is about the logarithm. So logarithm, let's see what we have. This is the equation, and we need to simplify and evaluate the following expression. So it's we have some logarithm in the base of 3. So the only thing that you may need to know is a few equations. So basically, we need to know that if we have a log A minus log B, we can rewrite this as log A divided by the B. And these two should be at the same base, right? So let's say if this is 3, this is 3, this should be 3. What else? Log A plus log B, this should be equal to log AB, right? Again, same base, and vice versa. So, I mean, if you have a log A divided by B, you can rewrite as log A minus log B, right? So these two can be from right to left or left to right. So let's see what we have. This should be pretty simple. Log 3, we have 3 over 2. So we can rewrite this as log in the base of 3 minus log 2 at a base 3, right? So this is the first one. What about the second? We have log 3 of 12. So this is basically 4 times 3, right? So we can rewrite this as log 4 plus log 3, correct? And then finally we have, well, log 3 over 2. And you can actually rewrite this as log 2, 3 plus log 2, 3, right? This is 2 times 2. Okay, so let me remove this. This is what we have, right? Okay, the last expression, this should be minus, right? We have this minus here. So these are to be canceled with each other. These two will be canceled. And finally, you have log 2 over 3 plus log 3 over 3. So you can calculate this by like calculator, but you can even simplify this, right? This is basically, I think I did something wrong. Let me see. Okay, this is 3 minus 2. This should be 2 plus 2 plus log 3. Okay, I did mistakenly cancel this one. This was log 3 over 3, right? Sorry. So let's rewrite everything again. 2 over 3. And this is minus log 2, 3. Okay, so these can be canceled. These two can be canceled, right? So we have basically 2 log 3 over 3. So this is the final answer. So what is the log 3 in the base of 3? Well, this is basically 1, right? So the final answer should be 2 times 1, which is 2. And you can actually solve this equation with a lot of variations. So this is one solution. The other solution would be, let's just look at this at log 3 over 2 in the base of 3, and then let's combine the other two, right? So these two are subtracting from each other, so this should be plus log 6 over 3, right? So 12, 2, I'm using this first equation. So it's basically A divided by B, which is 12 divided by 2. And then this is plus, so you can multiply these two logs, right? So 3 over 2 times 6 at the same base, which is again log 9 at a base 3. And this means, let's say, if log 9 over 3 is equal to x, 3 to the power of x is equal to 9, and that means my x is equal to 2. So you can do whatever you like, especially if you have like a same base, but then at the end, the answer is the same. And these are basically the two equations that you need only to know. Log A minus log B and log A plus log B. Any questions? Okay, let's move to example 4. Okay, about the trigonometry and identities, there is a table with a bunch of equations, and to be honest, you may not need most of those equations, maybe a little bit of that. So let's see what we have. Whenever you see that, like a cosecant or secant or any other like trigonometry equations, just try to transform everything to sine and cosine. So here we have cosecant of alpha is minus 8 to 5, and that means, well, let's just write cosecant, right? Cosecant of theta is equal, or alpha is equal to minus 8 to 5. And then the question is, what is this cosine 2 alpha? Let me open up my manual. So I may need to find what is this cosine 2 alpha, although I know what is the equation. Okay, here is a manual. We don't need the discrete, math. Let's see. Okay, mathematics. So we already covered this straight line and logarithms. Let's move. I'm going to talk about the polar system in a few slides, but then this is basically the identities that you may need some of these equations. So here we have a cosine of 2 alpha, and this is the case. So at the beginning of this question, we have cosecant of alpha, right? And we can turn this to sine of alpha. So it's better to find like the solution for cosine 2 alpha in terms of the sine, right? And we have this equation. So cosine of 2 alpha is 1 minus 2 times sine to the power 2 of alpha. So it says that cosecant of theta or alpha is equal to minus 8 over 5, right? So this means that my sine alpha is equal to minus 5 over 8, right? We have this equation. So this is my sine alpha, just plug into this equation. So my cosine 2 alpha will be equal to 1 minus 2 times 25 divided by 64, which is going to be, let's say this is 64, 64 minus 50. So 14 over 64, just divide by 2, 7 over 32. So this is a final answer for this problem. So it's most probably you're going to get some questions about cosecant or secant. Just know that you can turn this into sine and cosine, and this will be in combination with some sine to alpha or cotangent, even tangent, cotangent, or any other equations. But you should be able to find something from these identities table. Pretty straightforward. Any question? Okay. So let me get back to my iPad. So this is the correct answer. Okay, next question. Let's see what we have. It seems that it's pretty similar to the last question. We have some cosecant, cosine 3, and tangent, and we need to find this expression. So again, we see this cosecant, so let's just turn this to sine. So we're going to have sine x, 1 over sine x. We have cosine to the power 3 of x. Let's put this in the brackets. And what else? A tangent. So sine x divided by cosine x. So this will be cancelled. This will be cancelled to the power 2. So you have cosine 2x. Well, there is no such a choice here. But basically, if you look into the identity table, cosine 2x is equal to 1 minus sine 2x, right? Or, I mean, we all know this equation. Cosine 2 plus sine 2 is equal to 1. So this is, this is the correct answer. And again, if you have any question, please just unmute your mic because I don't see the chat panel. So I hope that this is clear. Let's move to the next question, question 6. Okay, this might be a little bit tricky. What is the value of x that will satisfy the following equation? No, this was not the question that was tricky. This is pretty simple. And this is one of the type of the questions that I immediately just try the choices. Because the equation is pretty simple, we have all the choices, so let's see what would happen. If I plug 45 into the equation, well, this is 3. Sine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. So it's a positive number. This is positive, this is positive, this is positive, cannot be equal to 0, right? So this is not the answer. What about 90? Okay, 90 of sine is 1, so 1 to the 2 is again 1, plus this should be 4, plus 3 cannot be equal to 0. This is not the answer. What about 180? Sine 180 is equal to 0. This is 0, this is 3. So this cannot be the answer, right? So the answer is 270 degrees. So it's pretty simple, but then let's say you get something that is more complex, how you can solve these kind of equations. So here you can simplify sine with a variable like a, right? So here we have a2 plus 4a plus 3 is equal to 0, right? And then this means that my equation is basically in the form of a plus 1 to a plus 3 equal to 0, right? So the roots of these equation, or the solution for these equations, are a equal to -1 or a equal to -3. So it means that sine x should equal to -1 or sine x is equal to -3, right? And we know that these cannot happen because the maximum of sine x, or the minimum or maximum of sine s, is something from -1 to 1, right? So this cannot be the answer, and sine x should be equal to -1. And we know from this circle that at 270 degrees, right, this is 0, this is 90 degrees, 180, and 270. This is basically my sine, which is -1. So the answer is 270 degrees, or in radians, 3 pi over 2, right? So this is a 1, 90 degree, this is pi, and this is 3 pi over 2, this is 2 pi. So very simple. Again, I did actually FE exam 5 years ago, and what I did for most of the problems, at first I just look into the solutions. I mean, for the choices, if I can plug in and try to satisfy the equation, I will try. Otherwise, I will think about the explicit solution. Okay, any question? Okay, let's move on. I'm just trying to finish all these 21 questions. So question 7. Okay, polar coordinate, and this is very simple. In polar coordinate, let's say if I have some x and y, or a point with a known x and y, I can just connect this point to the origin, right? So the distance from this point to the origin, we call this r, and then this angle is basically the angle of my polar coordinate. So we can transform these x to y system to r and theta. And we have the same question here. So in this question, it's asking if I have an x and y of -3, this is x, and -5.2, let's say this is 5 minus 5.2. What are its polar coordinate? So again, just by looking into this graph, I can answer to this question. Okay, so let's think about this angle, right? This angle, this is 90, 180, right? This is 180, and then we have some other angles. So it's probably this is larger than, less than 270 and larger than 180, right? So it cannot be 120. And sorry, this should be minus 120. Okay, so correct the choice for B. This is minus 120. So this cannot be answered. This cannot be the answer. So what does this minus means? Well, from the x-axis, counterclockwise, this is positive, and then clockwise, this is negative. Okay. So here, just by looking into this graph, it seems that this should be minus 120, not minus 150, right? But then let's see really how we can solve this problem. R simply is your x to the power 2 plus y to the power 2. So if you plug in -3 and -5.2, this will be equal to 6, which of course we have 6 for both these equations. But then what about alpha? Well, you can really find this angle, right here. Let's call this like beta, and then you have 90 degree here. So 90 degree plus beta, this will be your angle clockwise, which should be a negative number, right? Let's call this theta, but just write that this is negative. Okay, what is beta? Well, tangent of beta will be equal to your x divided by the b, right? So 3 times 5/2. You just use your calculator, and beta will be equal to 30. So 30 plus 90, 120 degree, but it should be clockwise, which means that it should be negative. So this is your correct answer. And this should be negative. So you need to only find like the radius, which is based on this simple equation. It's just a distance from your point to the origin, and theta, which is just the angle from the x coordinate. You just need to know that the counterclockwise is positive, clockwise is negative. Any question? Okay, let's move on. Okay, let me see if I can see in my screen. Okay, determine the x, y coordinate of the center of a circle defined by the following equation. So you might get one question from the geometry, and most probably this is from the circle or ellipse. I think it might be from ellipse or circle. And this is a little bit tricky. You may say that you're gonna just use these solutions or the choices to see if this is satisfied, but then this is about the center of a circle, right? So the equation of a circle, let's say this is a circle, only satisfied all these points which are in the circumference of the circle, right? So it will not satisfy the center. It's just all about the boundary of these circles. So if you just plug in all these numbers, you might be wrong in this equation. So we have to find the equation of this circle. Well, we have the equation, but we need to write this in the right form. So we can, again, use our manual, although this is the equation at the final form. So if you use the manual, the equation of a circle is x minus h, y minus k to the 2 is equal to r2. And these h and k are the x and y of one of these points on the boundary. So let's see if we can find or transform this equation into this form. So what I do, let's see, we have x2 minus 8x plus we have y2 minus 10y, and I'm gonna just move these 25 to the right of the equation. So we need some additional terms here to find these two equations, right? So this is going to be x minus 4, right, power of 2. And why? Because if you have a form of like x2 plus let's see, this is minus 8. If you have a form of x minus a to the 2, this is going to be equal to x2, right, minus 2ax, right, plus a2. So here I'm going to have x2 minus 4, right, to satisfy this 8. Correct? So I'm going to add 16 here. What about this one? It's minus 10, so this should be y minus 5 to the 2. And it means I have 25, right? So I'm basically adding 16 and 25 to these equations, and I have to subtract these two from the equation to be in equilibrium, right? So I have 25. Let's just add additional 16 to the right and additional 25.
Should it be negative 25 for the first 25 you have there?
Well, the first 25, this is including into the equation, right? Sorry, this should be negative. Yeah, this should be negative, right? So I just move this 25 to the right of the equation. So it's just minus 25. I add 16 to the first term, 25 to the second term, and I need to add these two to the right of the equation just to be in equilibrium, right? So in general, I have x minus 4 to the 2 plus y minus 5 over 2. This is equal to, well, this will be cancelled with each other, and this is 16. And this means that my radius is basically 4, right? And then how to satisfy this? Well, my final form should be this. This is my solution, right? So 4 and 5 will be equal to, this is the final form of my circle, right? So x minus 4 plus y minus 5 is equal to the radius to the 2. So you need to just find the form of the circle, right? And this is the center, right? 4 and 5, these are the center. Again, because it's asking for the center, it might be a little bit confusing, right? So these two, they shouldn't be satisfied into this equation. I mean, if you put 4 and 5, well, this will be 0, this will be 0. It's not equal to 16, and it shouldn't be, right? Because we are working on a center of a circle. So center of a circle is basically these two. So x should be equal to 4, and y should be equal to -5. Any question? Okay. Next question. What is the slope of the following curve with it when it crosses the positive part of the x-axis? Okay, this is one of the, again, the problems that I immediately draw something. So this is the parabola, a parabolic equation at x equal to 0, y is equal to -1, and let's just put x equal to 1, so 10 minus 3 minus 1, so at 1, y is equal to 6. And probably we have a parabola like this. And the question is, what is the slope of the following curve when it crosses the positive part of the x-axis? So we are looking into this point. It crosses the positive part of the x-axis, but the question is, what is the slope? Okay, first we need to find this point. And here basically y is equal to 0, right? So 10x2 minus 3x minus 1 should be equal to 0. And we know that the root of this equation is equal to, for this, let's say I have ax2 plus bx plus c is equal to 0, right? So x is equal to b, which is minus b, which is minus 3, so positive 3, plus minus square root of b to the 2 minus 4 times a times c. So times 10 times 1. And this divided by 2a, which is 2 times 10. So if we calculate this, x should be equal to 3 plus minus 7 over 20. Or let's say x is equal to 1 over 2 or minus 1 over 5. But then we are looking into the positive side, so x should be 1 over 2. So this point is basically half. Okay, but this is not the answer, right? I mean, if in the choices you had 1 over 2, you may pick 1 over 2, but then it's asking for, let's say, the slope of the line, right? So what is the slope of any line or any equation is basically the derivative of that equation, right? So the first derivative of y with respect to x, this will give us the slope. So let's see, we have our equation is 10x2 minus 3x minus 1. So the derivative of y with respect to x should be 20x minus 3, right? This is just the derivations. This is a slope, but then at x equal to 1 over 2. So this should be 10 minus 3, which is basically 7, right? And again, even by looking into this graph, we can say that the slope is pretty large. It's, of course, more than 1 to 1, right? So all these three are basically less than 1. And this is your solution. your answer, 7. Any questions? Okay, let's move on. Next, what is the maximum value of the function below on the interval x less than 0? So if you see some expressions as slope, maximum, minimum, all these are about derivatives, right? If you have any equation like this, our max and minimum would happen in the points that divide that your basically second derivative is equal to 0, right? Why? Because your slope is basically changing the directions from positive or to negative or vice versa, and this is all about your second derivative, right? So the max, min, these are happening at this point. So let's see. We're going to set f prime x equal to 0. So just solve for x. So f prime x is equal to 6x2 plus 24x minus 30. And your second derivative will be 12x plus 24. Okay, so this is your f prime. So in this case, in the maximum, your slope should be equal to 0, right? So this is our equation. This should be equal to 0. And if you find the roots, the solutions for this equation, you're going to find that x is equal to 1 or minus 5. So we are looking into the solution for the interval that is less than 0. So this is x equal to minus 5. And then it's asking what is the maximum value. So we're going to just plug this value into our initial equation, right? This is the point that the slope is equal to 0. And of course, this is our maximum point. Okay, so f, let's just plug 5 into the equation. We're going to have 2 minus 5 to the 3, this equation, right? Plus 12 times minus 5 to 2 minus 30 minus 5 plus 10. And if you calculate this at the end, you're going to get a value of 210. So our maximum at point x equal to minus 5 is 210. So again, the max or mean happen when the slope is equal to 0, which means f prime is equal to 0, or f prime, or that the second derivative is changing the direction, right? So this was wrong, basically. I meant f prime x is equal to 0. So this is your max or mean. Any question? Okay. So next question. Let's see. Okay. So we have this limit, a problem. What is the value of the following limit? So let's see. We have the limit of sine 5x divided by x when x is reaching to 0. So if we put 0 into the limit, well, sine of 5 times 0 is basically 0, and then this is divided by 0, right? And this is when you can use this L'Hopital's rule. So whenever in a limit you found 0 over 0 or infinite over infinity, you can use this rule, right? Let's see what is this rule. And again, I'm going to show you the manual. But then here, you can use the derivative of each section. Derivative of sine 5x with respect to x divided by the derivative of x. Okay, what is the derivative of sine 5x? Well, I mean, the derivative of sine x is cosine x, but then the derivative of sine 5x is basically cosine 5x times 5, and then derivative of x with respect to x is basically 1. So let's put x equal to 0, and to the cosine this should be 1, and then finally the final answer will be equal to 5. So whenever you see this limit, most probably you need to use this L'Hopital rule. Let's see, this is identities, geometries, which again, you might get a question from this ellipse or from the circle, and it's most probably the circle. The derivatives, let's move on. And this is about the L'Hopital rule. So whenever you see the 0 over 0 or infinity, then you can use this, right? And even the first derivative didn't work, then you can use the second derivative and even the third, right? So you can use this to calculate the limit of your fx over the gx, or let's say two equations over each other. Okay. So this was about the limit. Next question is about the integral. All right, what is the result of the following indefinite integral? And again, just look into the choices, right? This should be really fast. I mean, 15x4, let's take just the integral. This should be 15x5 over 5, right? Minus 8 4 over 4. What is the integral? The integral of 1 over x is basically the natural logarithm, or ln of x, and plus 7x plus c. So this is basically your answer, right? So you should be really fast in this. And let's see. Okay, 15 over 5 will be 3, right? So basically this is your final answer. And you see that we have this 1 over x, right? So in the solution, we should have this ln. So none of the other choices would be the answer. So pretty fast and simple. This is about the integral. We should have a few more. Okay, next question. What is the result of flowing, again, integral? So this might be a little bit scary because we have cosine and sine. And this is a multiplication, right? This isn't a simple just summation, so you cannot make them separated. But then once you have this kind of equation for the integral of like cosine and sine, you can basically change these two into a simple form. So let's say if cosine x, right, is equal to, let's say, u, So you have u2, right? And then we know that the derivative of cosine x with respect to x will be equal to minus sine x dx, right? So basically the second half is just minus the u. So we have the integral of minus u2 du, right? So if you take the integral of this one, this should be minus u3 over 3 plus c. And we found the integral, right? Just plug the u into this equation. So u is cosine x. So the final solution is basically minus 1 over 3 cosine to the 3 of x plus c, which is b. So don't let this kind of problem scare you. Let's just try to simplify the equation, okay? So most probably you can find a variable and then its derivative for the second part. That should be the case, most probably. Okay, next question. What is the total area of the region bounded by the x-axis and the curve y equal to sine x on the interval between pi over 2 and 2 pi? Okay, so you may recognize that this is a total area, and that means an integral, right? This might be a little bit confusing because if you take the integral, right? Let me actually go over the solution. But if this is your like x and this is y, let's just plot the graph again. We have y equal to sine x. We have this sinusoidal shape, right? So this is pi. At pi over 2, we have the max, which is 1. This is 3 pi over 2, which is the minimum, and it's minus 1. And this is 2 pi. So this question is asking for the area of the sine x from pi over 2 to 2 pi, which means this, let's say 3 sections, right? So the total area here is basically an absolute value, right? We have just a magnitude, and then we're going to sum up all these 3 together, right? But if you take really the integral, basically we should consider the positive and negative side, right? So these two might be canceled with each other, right? So this is basically the difference. If you use your calculator using this integral, you may get the wrong answer because we are looking for the total area, which is a positive value, just a magnitude, right? So for this section, what is the integral? This should be fine, right? I mean, integral of sine x, because this is all positive, from like pi over 2 to pi, or let's say from 0 to pi over 2, this is equal to 1, right? So sine x integral is equal to cosine, right? Minus cosine. So if you apply the pi 2 and pi, the area under this section, or let's say about 90 degree, will be equal to 1. So you have 1 plus 1 plus 1. The answer is C, which is equal to 3, right? So if you see like a total area, especially for sine and cosine, just consider that you might get some positive and negative sides. So don't be fooled by this kind of problems. Any question? Next question, what is the general solution to the following differential equation? So this is one of the problems that you may need to look into really your manual. This is a second order partial differential equation, or PDE. And you should be able to find a solution into the manual. Let me open my manual. Okay, so L'Hopital derivatives. So if you don't know what is a derivative of like logarithm or anything, just look into this table. Again, this is about the integrals. You may need this table. Okay, you don't need anything from the series. Okay, this is a differential equation, first order equation, which is not the case for this problem, but then in the next page, this is basically the second order linear homogeneous differential equation. So if you got a question in this form, you should be able to find a solution here. So let's say we have y prime plus ay plus by. Three different solutions can happen based on these three criteria. If a2 over is larger than 4b, this is your solution. If a2 is equal to 4b, this is your solution. And if a2 is less than 4b, the third one, this is your solution. For this case, this problem, we have y second derivative of y, 8y prime plus 16y, this is equal to 0, right? So here basically our a is equal to minus 8, b is equal to 16. So if we calculate a2, it's 64. 4 times b is 4 times 16, which is again equal to 64. So basically a2 is equal to 4b, right? And this is your solution. The solution is y equal to c1 plus c2 times x e to the r1 x. And what is r? Again, you have it here. So your final solution or equation should be in this form: r2 plus ar plus b is equal to 0. So if I rewrite this equation, it's basically r minus 4 equal to 0, right? So our r or root is equal to 4. So final solution is c1 plus c2x e 4x. So it might be scary, but then if you just look into the manual, the solution is there. Let's see. So B is the final answer. Again, you can rewrite this as r2 minus 8r minus 16 equal to 0, and this means r minus 4 to the 2 is equal to 0, or r is equal to 4, right? And then the solution is c1 plus c2x e to rx if a2 is equal to 4b. Okay, so if you get anything like the second order, a partial differential equation, just look into the manual. You have a solution. Next question. I think we have 2 or 3 questions for the vectors, and this should be very simple. For the 3 vectors, what is the value of the following product? So we have a kind of a mixed product. We have a dot product and a cross product. Let's work first on the cross product of B and C. So the cross product of B and C. If you remember, we had this graphical solution of I, J, and K. We're going to write just the B vector as, this is our B vector, 1, 2, and 3, and C vector as 3, 4, and 5. And then here, we're going to focus at I. Cancel these two. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, right? For J, don't forget to have this minus J. So we're going to focus on J. And then cancel these two. So this is your case. We have 1, 3, 3, and 5. And then plus the next one, we're going to focus on K. We cancel the row and column. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So again, if you don't remember how to calculate the cross product, just you need to review this. But then at the end, this is going to be 2 times 5 minus 3 times 4, which means minus 2i. We have minus j. Let's see, 1 times 5 minus 3 times 3, so 9. This is minus 4. Minus 4 times minus, it's going to be positive 4. So positive 4j. And here, let's see, 1 times 4, which is 4, minus 2 times 3, so minus 2k. So this is the cross product of B and C. And then the dot product should be simple, right? It's just 1-to-1 multiplication of B times C times A. So let's see, A dot product of B times C will be equal to, okay, 6 times minus 2. This is 6, right? And this is minus 2. Plus 8 times 4 plus 10 times minus 2. Okay, this is 20, this is minus 12, and this is minus 12, 20, this is plus 32. So the final answer is basically 0. Okay, so if you get like 3 vectors and anything like these products, you just need to know how to calculate the dot product and the cross product, and it should be fast. Okay, next question, what is the angle between the 2 given vectors? So there are a couple different ways to find this, but then the simplest solution is that a dot product of A and B will give us the magnitude of A times the magnitude of B times the cosine of the angle between them, right? And this is the simplest way because the calculation of the dot product is pretty simple. So let's have this 1-to-1 dot product. A times, or A dot product B should be equal to 4 times 24 plus 12 times minus 8 plus 6 times 6. So if you calculate this, this should be equal to 36. What is the magnitude of A? Well, it's 4 power 2 plus 12 2 plus 6 2. And this will be equal to 14. And you can calculate the magnitude of B as well. So this is going to be 24 to the 2 plus like minus 8 to the 2 plus 6 to the 2. and this will be equal to 26. So at the end, we have this equation. 36 is equal to 14 times 26 times cosine theta. So at the end, theta will be the inverse of cosine of, let's say, 36 divided by 14 multiplied by 26. And if you calculate this, theta, or the angle, will be equal to 84.32. Okay, and this should be positive. My bad. You're gonna correct this and send all these corrections to Dr. Miller later. So this is your final solution. Any question? Okay, I think we finished all the problems related to mathematics. We have 3 more for statistics. Do we have time, Dr. Miller, or I should stop?
Yeah, good. Keep going.
Okay, good. Okay, 4 different questions. First, and I have to switch to my PC because I would like to use a calculator, or I have an emulator or simulator of a Casio calculator. But if you have any question about standard deviation or regression, it might be better to use your calculator because it's pretty fast. Okay, we can actually go over like the solution just by hand, but it takes a lot of time. So I would recommend you, if you have a standard deviation or linear regression, just use your calculator. So let me skip these 2 problems. I'm gonna get back to my PC later after we find a solution for other problems. Here we have a problem. It's basically about the mean. So for these kind of questions, it might be better to just use the hand. It might be faster. So the question is, what is the mean of the following data set? We have some value versus the frequencies, right? So for example, we have a value of 2480 of a data. It can be anything. And we have 23 data with this value. Question is, what is the mean, or let's say the X bar? So let's say if I have a data like 7, 7, 4, 4, like and 4, my mean would be equal to the summation of all these data, right? Which is 7 plus 7 plus like 12, divided by then the number of the data, which is 5, right? Here we have a value and frequency. So to find like the summation of all these data, I need to multiply the value with the frequencies. So let's say this is V, the value times the frequency. And let me actually, let's see. Let's say this is V, this is F. So 2480, we have 23. This is V times F. So if I multiply these two, I'm going to get 57,040 for the first row. And you're going to do this for the other data as well. So in this case, I'm going to have 85,400, 96,000, 48, sorry, this should be 7788. And for the last row, it should be 48,720. So if I sum up all these values, the final summation would be 365,040. So this is a summation, right? So my mean is equal to the summation of all the data divided by the number of the data, right? So the number of the data, we have a frequency for each value just sum up all these frequencies. So the summation would be 152. And if you calculate this, your mean should be around 2401.6. So it says most nearly, which is going to be C. So you may get actually the data like this, or some value with the frequencies. So if you have frequencies, just multiply the frequencies with the value to get the final summation. Okay. I have one question about the normal distribution as well. So let's work on this one first, and then I'm gonna go over my PC. So you should really know what is really the normal distribution curve to be able to answer to these kind of questions. So it says the final scores in the test are normally distributed with a mean of 72. It's like the grades in class, and then a standard deviation of 10. What is the most nearly the probability that the student's score will be between 62 and 78? So although this is a probability, this is not really a traditional probability problems. This is basically a statistics problem, and it's all about a normal distribution curve. So in a normal distribution curve, we know that we have this bell-shaped distribution, right? The center or centroid, this is my mean. And then I might have some standard deviation, right? So I know that if, in this case, let's see what we have in the mean, which is the centroid of this normal distribution curve, the mean is 72. The standard deviation is 10. So if I move by 10 points to the right and left of this distribution curve, I'm gonna get 82 and 62, right? And then there are some probability calculation for this normal distribution curve. And these are in a table in your manual that can give you what is really the area under this curve. And this will give you the probability of the problem. So for example, if you can find the area under this curve, you can guess what is the probability of having a score between 62 and 82, right? Which means one standard deviation from the mean. So we should actually transfer this to a unit distribution curve, or let's say the standard distribution curve. And it means that we're going to move the mean from whatever we have to 0, right? And then the standard deviation, so in this case, is 10 to 1. So this is exactly the same thing, but it's normalized, right? And in this case, we have a standard distribution curve. So let's see what we have in this case. It's asking for a probability of a score between 62 and 78, right? So in one standard deviation, we have 62 and 82. Here it's asking for 62, which is exactly one deviation, or one standard deviation, to 78. So it's a little bit less than one standard deviation to the right. So we are looking for the curve, the area under this curve, right? So let's go over the manual. This is one of the problems that you need to go to the manual, of course. Okay, let's move on. You don't need anything about the series. This is fine. Just move on. Metrics, nothing. The vectors, so we already covered these vectors. Identities of the vectors, we don't need anything from here. Mean and median and standard deviation are going to work on the calculator. So let's just move on. Don't need anything from here. Okay, this is the important table. So we have this unit normal distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. So this is a standard normal distribution curve. So let's see what we have. We have x. This is the point on our distribution curve. And then this fx, well, you have different cases or scenarios, right? This is, for example, the area from the left of your distribution curve to your data, or for example, you have this case. So you need to find what you really need. So in this case, let's see, we have the score of 62, and let me find my problem on my PC. Just a second. Okay, 62 and 70x, 78. So this is x1, x2, and then my mean is equal to 72 with the standard deviation of 10. So what does this x means? Okay, we need to basically standardize this x, right? So x1 is 62. So this minus my mean divided by standard deviation, right? So let's say x minus mean divided by standard deviation. If we calculate this, this is going to be okay. I'm doing something wrong. Just a second to find the solution. Okay, so this is basically, I did something wrong and the statement. This 62, this should be 65, so my bad. Let's say this is 65. So I can calculate this x, which is equal to 0.7 minus 0.7. And then on the other hand, I have x2, which is 70x. So this minus the mean divided by the standard deviation, this will be equal to 0.6. So basically in my unit normal distribution curve, I'm looking into from minus 0.7 to 0.6. This should be 65, right? So let's say if this is one standard deviation, I'm a little bit behind of one standard deviation from the left and a little bit behind from the right. I'm looking into this area, right? Okay, so these are my x. Just find the values from the table. So from the left, let's say this is the case. Sorry, this should be the case. Let me resize this. Okay, for 0.6, let's say this is my bell shape. I'm looking for this area. And for minus 0.7, I'm looking for this area, right? And if I subtract these two, well, I can find the area between 0.6 and minus 0.7. So let's see if we can find the area from the table. Okay, so this is x 0.6, this is 0.7, right? For 0.6, we need this value, which is 0.72, and it means the probability of any score less than the mean plus 0.6 deviation is this value. For 0.7, well, I need this value, right? And if I subtract these two, I can find the area like between 0.6 and 0.7. So if the x, you had actually the same value like 0.6 on left and right, you can use this graph, right? But because 0.6 and 0.7 are not equal, you need to find the area differently. So if you subtract these two, your final probability would be about 0.4837. It's just a subtraction of these two. Which is B. So just try to learn about this normal distribution curve. And if you have any other questions, I mean, I can spend more time to explain this normal distribution curve. Okay, let me switch to my PC. Let me see, how can we stop? Okay, and share my screen to the PC. Just a second. We have a calculator. All right. Screen should be fine. Okay, can you see the screen? Okay, good. So again, if you have like a problem for standard deviation, it might be better to use a calculator. And I have a simulator on my PC, and I'm familiar with Casio and Texas. I have like a link here. If you don't know how to calculate the standard deviation, just use this link. This is for Casio, and you can find for Texas Instrument as well. So we have 4 data 4699, and we are trying to find the standard deviation. So I'm gonna just put like the data into the calculator. To do this, I need to change the mode to the statistics mode. So just push the mode, and then 3 is basically statistics. And when you go into the statistics option, there are a lot of different, options. There are 2 options that we're gonna work on them. Option 1 is the one variable system, which is basically for standard deviation. And second, this is to find the regression, like a linear regression of the data points. So here we just need the standard deviation. So let's just put 1. And here you can basically just type your data, right? So here I have 4699. So I'm gonna just include my data 4, 6, 9, and 9. So we have the data. I'm gonna just push AC so that the data is recorded. And now I need to calculate the standard deviation. So I just push Shift, and then you may notice that we have these superscripts on the digits here, and on top of the 1 we have the statistics or distribution. So I'm gonna just push 1. So I'm just into the statistics mode, and then for this standard deviation, I need to go to the 4. So when I go to the 4, there are different options. This is the mean, the standard deviation, the number of data. So this is basically the standard deviation, which is 3. Just push equal. So your standard deviation would be equal to 2.12, which is A. And if you don't use your calculator, you may lose a lot of time. So that's my really suggestion for this type of problem. Just use your calculator. And again, you may get a different. I mean, for Texas, it might be a little bit different from the Casio. Okay, so next we work on this, and just this is remained. Linear regression. You only have 4 points, and you need to find the linear regression which can be fit into these 4 data points. So again, you can use a calculator. And for this special problem, if you don't use a calculator, you may need to spend even 6-7 minutes. But then let's see what we have. Again, we can just include our data. I'm going to go into the mode of statistics again, which is 3. Regression is 2. And then you can include your data, like X and Y. So my first data point is 1 as X. So this is 1. And just, this is what I usually do for Casio. I just include all the X data points and then put the Y data points. So my X1 is 1. The next one is 2, 3, 4, X, and 5. This is the last X. And then go up and then put the Y points. So I have 6, 7 for the second Y, 11, and 13. Okay, and then you can check again the data. We have recorded the data. Just push the AC. Let's go to the statistics mode. Okay, here again, number 4. I think I did something wrong. Let's see. Statistics. Okay, this should be the data, I think. Shift 2. Okay, let me see what is going on. This is the statistics type, sum, regression. Sorry, so we need to find the regression, right? So it's basically 5. So shift, I don't shift, just 5. Okay, and basically you have A, R, Y prime, X prime, and B. So in a regression, we have this form of A, X plus B, right? So in this equation, this problem, it says linear regression is used to plot a straight line for this data. What is the slope, right? So in this regression form of equations, we have basically AX plus B. This is our regression line, right? So B is the slope, and your calculator will directly give you the slope. You need just to push 2. B will be equal to 1.86. So your final answer should be C. So for linear regression, standard deviation, I really suggest you to use your calculator. And Casio is really nice. I've also worked with Texas. It should be the same. Okay, and that was all the problems for mathematics and statistics. If you had any question later, just let me know. We can work on some additional examples as well if you have time, like later in the semester.
Thank you, Dr. Mahabadi. So, good stuff. I will stop. If there's any other quick questions, otherwise I'll stop the recording.
Sure.
Awesome. And send me that file and I'll post that as well. So
Of course.
have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.